Well, it is 5 o'clock, so I'll get going. So welcome to the October 27th Nantucket Conservation Commission meeting. This meeting is being held entirely remotely with participants joining via Zoom app. I ask that everybody participating please mute your phone or device when you're not speaking so that you're not distracting for people participating or for our minutes taker. I also ask that anybody wishing to speak, please raise your hand either in your camera window or virtually and wait for me to call on you before you speak. If you have a relationship to any project, I ask that you state that relationship before making any public comment. I think that's basically it. The public can participate via YouTube, and directions are on the town's website. So we'll begin tonight's meeting with public comment on items not being heard this evening. Jeff, go ahead.
Sorry, just to hop in, this isn't public comment, but I want to take time at the front of the meeting because I feel like this is when we have our most people. On my screen, he's there, but I want to take a moment to introduce everybody to our new conservation agent, Will Delerba. He's on screen. He can wave if he wants to. He started with us a week ago. Oh, he's leaving now. But his screen is not behaving itself.
We scared him off, Jeff.
And no audio. Oh, he has no audio. Well, I'll figure that out. But he's here going through, but he has joined us full time to help out with all things Conservation Commission. So he and I are both here to help you guys going forward. And while we're going, I will try to resolve Will's audio issue, or he can. But he's here just to kind of listen and sit through the first CONCOM meeting. But you'll probably be seeing us both at these for a while, and then some combination of us going forward. But I just wanted to let everyone see his smiling face today. So.
Well, thank you, Jeff, for introducing Will. Will, it was nice to meet you at site visits, and we're lucky to have you supporting us on staff. All right, let me just give a quick check to our YouTube comments. Does not appear that we have any public comment at this point. So the following items are continued this evening under notices of intent. We have Nantucket Island's Land Bank at 32 Western Avenue continued until November 10th. I believe that's our only continuance. Jeff, did we have any other continuances come through? Oh, you're muted.
Too many things at once. Just to run through, and we had under notices 32 Western Ave to 1110. 34B Wall Street has requested a continuance to 1110. And then in amended orders, 19 East Tristram's has requested to withdraw, so we'll get there when we get there. And then 16 Easton Street has requested to continue to 1110 as well.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Terry, did you get those continuances?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, so we will begin this evening under notices of intent. We have Brant Point Club LLC at 6 and 8 North Beach Street and 4 Dolphin Court. And I'm not sure, I think we have Brian Madden on for this one.
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Brian.
Hi. So it's been a little while since we first presented this project, and I just wanted to provide the commission with some updates. We had submitted some additional materials back at the end of September that showed some upgrades and some improvements to the site. Just as a reminder, this application is being filed to construct a new building, an above ground pool, deck, parking area, pervious parking area, and associated upgrades to walkways, decking, ramps. There are two small additions onto existing structures and related site improvements, landscaping, utilities, stormwater management. The entire site is within land subject to coastal storm flowage, elevation 7. And there's in the far westerly corner of the site, there's some projection of buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands that are off-site. So the updates primarily include, and this was the reason for the delay, it was a pull-off area off of North Beach Street. Whereas previously there was going to be access, delivery, drop-off off of Dolphin Court. And that has now been amended, revised. So it's a pull-off area off North Beach Street. There's been significant coordination with the town on that front, and the project has received planning board approval recently on that end. So that is a new element that we haven't seen previously. One of the things that we integrated into the design based on commissioner feedback was the incorporation of rain barrels to collect roof runoff. And those are going to be areas that are not directly connected to subsurface infiltration systems that we are proposing on site. And so this collected rainwater within these rain barrels will be utilized for on-site landscaping purposes and reallocation, basically. The proposed subsurface infiltration system, the larger one, which is proposed under the parking area, has been designed in compliance with Mass Stormwater Management Standards and has been maximized in size to receive potential floodwaters during storm events. That was also a discussion we had at the first meeting. Just to reiterate, the new building is proposed in compliance with flood zone standards. It's on a shallow crawl space with flood vents. First floor elevation is elevation 8, above that flood zone elevation of 7. The proposed pool and deck area is also elevated. The pool is above ground, with the first floor, or with the top of the pool at elevation 8, so above the flood zone elevation. So we're not mixing potential flood waters. Jeff, there we go. Not mixing potential flood waters with pool waters. The deck itself is going to be supported by sauna tubes. We submitted a representative schematic of what that looks like. And I did note in the cover letter that that schematic didn't show the flood vents within the pool perimeter, but that will certainly be the case to allow for floodwaters to freely flow under the deck area. So based on the design, the project has been designed to meet flood zone standards for flood control and storm damage prevention. And no waivers are required. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. I have to say my heart was really happy when I saw the rain barrels, so thank you. I see that Linda has a question or comment.
I have to recuse from this. This is a long-standing client.
Okay,
I'm
thank
involved in this whole project for the HDC part of it and the planning board part of it, so I have to recuse.
you, Linda. Any questions or comments from other commissioners? Joe?
Yes, the question I had is 120 square foot pool. Is there any definition for a pool versus something else? The 120 square feet is smaller than Jeff's office.
Yes, it is quite small. Yeah, we labeled it as pool. I think it's, I guess we can call it whatever we like, but it's holding pool type water. So
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Mark?
Question for Brian, how deep will the pool be? I'm concerned about depth of groundwater. You're digging the hole for the pool. You say it's above ground. Is that truly above ground?
yeah, so the pool, the top of the pool is going to be at elevation 8. The existing grade is somewhere between 4 to 5. The pool itself is just kind of a 4-foot deep pool, so it'll be minimally set in the ground, I guess, a little bit, just with the foundation itself, similar to the crawl space, but it will be above high groundwater.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Looks, oh, Ian?
Well, just building on Joe's comment, Brian, where's the equipment for the pool?
I believe it's going to be interior to the building.
So is it a hot tub masquerading as a pool, and does it make any difference in our jurisdiction, Jeff? No,
No,
except, hot tub, you don't have chlorine, I assume, or maybe you do. I don't know.
no, especially in a commercial setting like this, you would definitely be treating that water.
Are we going to have the same requirements for emptying it?
If you approve it that way, but that would be our recommendation.
Does it come with a plug in the bottom?
No, and
Okay.
we would expect all the typical pool
Okay,
draining conditions.
thank you, Ashley.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners before we open it up for public comment? All right. Looks like no, so we'll open up Brant Point Club for public comment. I'm not seeing any public comment at this point. All right, so Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close?
Yes, you do.
Brian, would you like to close?
Please.
Is there a motion to close? Motion made by Mark. I'll give the second to Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Plandowski. Oh, you're muted.
Aye.
All right, so that carries with Commissioner Williams recused. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
So that moves us on to 42 and 44 ARB Way LLC at 9 Arbor Way. And this is represented by David Haynes.
Good evening. How is everybody? It's Halloween this weekend. I think you all want to celebrate that. What we've got here at 9 Arbor Way is off of North Beach Street is work on an existing house. They want to tear down a portion of the house and reconstruct it. The house is currently down approximately 12 feet off of the wetland boundary. And what we are proposing to do is to reconstruct, tear it down, reconstruct a new structure as close to the road as possible. We're pulling it up to the front yard setback. and maximizing the distance in the rear of the property away from the wetland boundary. It'll go from 12 feet off the wetland boundary to approximately 32 feet off the wetland boundary, with a reduction of work within. There is currently structure within 25 feet of the wetland. At 239 square feet is within 25, and 1,149 is within 50. We are reducing it to 0 within 25 and 392 within the 50. 71% reduction in the area there. Also, we're proposing to do is, currently the existing 25-foot buffer is a maintained lawn. There's a planting plan, a landscape plan that was submitted with this that entirely vegetates that 25 feet with indigenous vegetation in a naturalized setting, and reestablishes an entire 25-foot vegetated buffer. Also, the existing foundation does not have flood vents. The proposed foundation, the proposed building will be above the flood elevation, which the current one is not. And the foundation will be equipped with flood vents to allow flooding, therefore increasing the flood storage capability of the site. The planting in the buffer zone, in the 25-foot buffer zone, is almost 4,000 square feet of planting. We are asking for waivers for work on a structure within 50 feet, well, within 25 as well, but within 50 feet. And we're asking for a waiver. The foundation, because of the hydrology of the site, the water table is down about 42 inches, and that will be about where the footings go. So we will be within 2 feet of the water table, but above the water table. No dewatering will be necessary. They did recently build an addition onto the house and put in a similar foundation and did not have to dewater. So no dewatering is required. We will not be in the water table, but we will be within 2 feet of it. The foundation will be a frost wall with flood vents, and the floor will be just gravel, stone, so that will allow no loss of infiltration. So the project involves pulling significant amount of structure away from the wetland boundary as much as possible, allowing flooding beneath the building and increasing flood storage and increasing infiltration, and also the planting a vegetative buffer will increase the buffering, the protection of the wetland area. That basically is it in summary. We are asking for those waivers, and we feel that the water table issue, 2 feet to the water table, is we're asking for no reasonable alternative and will not alter. And for the other, we're asking for an overall net improvement, because we are pulling the structure farther back from the wetland as far as possible. We're increasing the flood storage of the site and the area, and the vegetative buffer is an overall improvement to what's out there now. It's a net improvement. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners?
Well,
All right,
Yes.
Ian, I'll go to you.
sorry. And after you, Seth. After you. I beg your pardon, Ashley. After you.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ian.
Okay, well, thank you both. So correct me if I'm wrong, David, but are you actually asking us to preserve the potting green So rather than build outside the 50, which we normally insist on, I mean, that is owned by it is part of the property, is it not?
Yes, it is. Yes, it
Yeah.
is. And that's the putting green is on the other side of the addition. This is in the area where the existing building is and moving it as far forward as possible. And yes, we're not trying to, we did just get the putting green approved and built the last few years.
But you're asking us to turn a blind eye to our normal provision of no construction within the 50 to preserve the putting green rather than putting the new construction on the other side of what you're going to keep.
Well, we are proposing a big improvement to what is there. I mean, we could keep the existing building and work inside of it and renovate it like that as well. And that we could maintain the existing conditions, which we would rather create an improvement. But yes, I am asking for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashley.
To shorten the question, shorten the answer up. Yes.
Okay.
All right, Seth, I'll go to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And David, I hope you're well. I'm just reviewing the plant schedule that's proposed. And in general, I think it's pretty good, but there are 4 of the plugs, the herbaceous plants that probably need some review and revision. The first is tufted hairgrass. That's not native to Massachusetts at all, so I'd like to see that definitely removed. And then your eastern wood fern, your blue wood aster, and your wild bergamot, although they're native to Massachusetts, none of those are county documented as being native to Nantucket. So maybe just pick some other alternatives, please.
We will do that. Thank you for that input. I'm a geologist, so don't me. I try to give you the ones you want, but sometimes, and we will fix that.
Thank you. David, I had a question, and I couldn't see it on the plan Jeff pulled up, but I thought I was remembering it from the packet. Did this project have a pretty substantial deer fence going in?
It had one on an earlier plan.
Okay,
And I mean, there was one on an approved plan previously. I was out there on the site today. I did notice there was a deer fence there.
okay. I was just, concerned about that. I know that deer are problematic for landscape plants, et cetera, but wildlife does need to be able to access wetlands. So I was concerned about that. I wasn't certain that it was previously approved based on our packet, but I could be confused.
I'm not quite, I've seen it on a previous plan and I don't remember what it is. I know it was specified on the plan to be, I think 18 inches above the ground to allow wildlife to migrate through, but not deer.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they're wildlife too. I don't know. I worry that they're going to get fenced out of everywhere and we can't, we've got to let all wildlife traverse those ways. So I don't know, Jeff, if you can check on the approval of that deer fence.
Yes, we'll look into it quickly.
Thank you.
Or
Any
if you wanted, excuse me, sorry, or if we wanted to, if we're not sure, I mean, you could simply put in the order that it's not allowed, and then if they want to put it back, they can come back and amend it. Or you can talk about it now. Either way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine either way. We somehow other commissioners feel. I totally understand fencing like a planting area off, but I was just worried it looked like it was like in the entire property line. So.
Well,
Ian?
Well, since they're a perennial problem where I am, and I'm, thank God there's no wetlands within the immediate vicinity, I'm noticing that the beachside inn is adjacent. And, you know, is the fencing, if the fencing is on their side of the wetland, how is it really going to interfere with wildlife migration?
So I guess this property does it, and then the next property does it, and then the next property does it. You know, it's just the starting of that. And it is in our provisions that we have to support wildlife habitat, and whether or not we like the deer or not, you know, for me, I don't love them. I don't like them in my garden, but I think we need to allow them to access the wetland.
No, so Ashley, I completely agree, but they have access from the beachside inn. Is when I'm just looking at the aerial, the Google map aerial, and the beachside inn has a, you know, parking in the road going along the perimeter of the wetland there.
Right.
But,
So
you know, I don't disagree with you. I'm just.
I think I just worry then that they're forced then to hit the road, you know, a more main road versus a neighborhood and hillside. So, you know, that's just my feeling. That I think we can't allow property owners to put those sort of barriers. Linda, I see your hand up.
I know this area well. There is plenty of room behind this property against the bank that they've got free range, plus they have the arbor, where the bird sanctuary down on the other side of the Stone Barn Inn. So there is a lot of room in behind all of these properties, including the beachside, actually, because I was just back there more recently, where there's a whole pass and repass all behind these properties. So I don't think it's going to be as big an issue as you think it might be someplace else.
All right. Well, I've said my piece. Mark?
Thank you, Ashley. David, let me say, we've been adhering to the 50-foot no build zone. I realize the building's already in it now, but it'll be pretty disruptive to have a major project going on, nicking the 25-foot line, but a lot of it in the 25 to 50. And I'm just having a hard time trying to rationalize that when you have perfectly good real estate near North Beach Street to build on. Can you help me with that?
Well, I mean, considerable expense has just been put forth to put that putting green in, and they really do like it. And the existing house is there, and it is much closer. This is an improvement. It's not, doesn't exactly meet all your regulations, but the existing house doesn't meet your regulations at all. And we are improving it. We're pulling the driveway outside of 50. It's a shell driveway. It's not a structure, but we're pulling that outside, and we are doing a lot of things to create a net improvement over what is there, with a much smaller intrusion into that 50-foot. We're pulling it all the way up as close as possible to the road. We do need to leave a little bit on both sides, one for parking and things like that. But I understand your concern, and we can try to, we would like to leave it where it is, if that is possible. I understand your concern. I hate to set a precedent, but it's a limited space in there, whatever.
Thank you, David.
Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So quickly on the wildlife passage issue, it's not our job to regulate what's happening at other properties with the application for this property. We need to make sure that we're treating this property on its own. So I think we do need to prohibit any prevention of wildlife passage. And we don't, as the chair said it right, We don't have a say in what we get to protect and what we don't. The definition of wildlife in our regulations is pretty much every taxa. So we have to treat them all equally. And then on the topic that Ian and Mark have raised so far, David, I hear you about the existing structure and the benefit of moving it back. I do think, as I always say, the burden of proof is on the applicant to show that there's no alternatives. And it does look like there is ample room on the site to have a structure, have an equivalent square footage structure even outside of the 50-foot buffer. So I would request that the representatives look at that and come back to us to see if that's possible, and if it's not possible, to give reasons why it's not possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. And I did have time to pull up what was in the packet. It does say proposed deer fence on our plan from October 6th. So I don't know what's on the property, but the plan makes it seem like there isn't deer fence there currently. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Great, looks like not, so we'll open this one up to public comment. Does not appear that we have any public comment at this point. So David, what would you like to do here? Would you like to try and close or come back in, I think it's 3 weeks?
Well, I take it there's some issues that we need to address. We need to find out the status of that deer fence. I know there's one there. And let me see if I can try to tweak the building a little bit more to get it outside of the 50. I understand your concern there. And if not, give you better reasons why we can't. So I guess I have a continuance.
All right, and I misspoke. It is 2 weeks because it's November 10th. So this will continue until November 10th. Thank you, David.
Great, thank you. See you later.
See you later. All right, so that moves us on to Hallett Lane LLC at 12 Almanac Pond Road, represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. Brian Madden from LEC for the record. The proposed project involves a series of site improvements. On site, there are a few resource areas, specifically an isolated vegetated wetland that's due east of the existing single-family dwelling, and then there's BVW that's further to the east, that's associated with the windswept cranberry bogs, abandoned bogs. There's also BVW across Almanac Pond Road to the west. But as proposed, there's no work within the 25-foot, no new structures within the 50. Specifically, what's being proposed is the existing back deck with a portion of that is located within the 50-foot. That deck is proposed to be reconfigured, and the portion that extends into the 50-foot buffer zone is proposed to be removed. There's a proposed pool and surrounding patio area that minimally extends into the 100-foot buffer zone. The pool sits on a topographic high point of the property. It's going to be at elevation 24, and the IVW is below elevation 13. I think probably high groundwater, maybe closer to elevation 12, actually. So there will be a 2-foot separation to the proposed pool. There's a septic system upgrade. The leach field is located outside the 100-foot buffer zone. That will be an IA system, an improvement over existing conditions. The existing pervious driveway is proposed to be reconfigured to be on the north side of the house or north side of the property, whereas it comes in on the south side where the septic is proposed. And so no waivers are proposed for the project. The removal of the small portion of the deck in the 50-foot will provide an improvement over existing conditions. We are still waiting for natural heritage, so we will continue. And similar to a couple of the adjacent properties along Almanac Pond Road, and what we talked about recently with the commission, that portions of the property are located or within a mapped flood zone, but are not actually within the flood zone area. And we will be filing a request with FEMA to verify that that has been issued on the adjacent properties to the south based on some recent projects that have been before you. So it's a mapping error that simply doesn't follow the existing topography whatsoever. And the closest flood zone elevation along Pulpus Road is elevation 8. So all proposed work activities are above elevation 22. So no work within the actual flood zone itself. But as proposed, I think the reduction of the deck in the 50-foot will result in a slight improvement over existing conditions, along with the IA septic upgrade. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments from commissioners? I know I'm curious to see how Heritage weighs in on this with all of the construction in their kind of jurisdiction.
Just to weigh in there. So based on those other properties, there are some St. Andrews Cross in or around the bog areas. It's certainly not viable habitat here. They may want us to verify that. That was requested on 14 Almanac before that was approved. But we'll wait and see what they have. I mean, it's really not habitat in this location, but.
If there are not any questions or comments from commissioners, we'll open this up for public comment. Does not appear that we have public comment. I know we're waiting on Heritage. So Brian, would you like to continue for 2 weeks until November 11th? November 10th, excuse me?
Yes, please.
Okay. This will continue until November 10th. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that moves us on to 11 at 234 Nantucket Road, also represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. So the proposed project also involves a series of site improvements, but just to go over the resource areas, there are boarding vegetated wetland systems that are connected via drain pipes under Nantucket Road out to the larger Hither Creek system. There are also some PVC pipes under the existing driveway that connect the wetlands in the northerly portion of the site. And then the wetlands in the southwesterly corner of the site also are connected. They are connected off-site to the southwest. But the proposed project involves, I'm going to go over this sequentially. So a water line is proposed to be brought along within the driveway footprint itself. The driveway is gravel. We are proposing to install erosion control barriers along both sides of the driveway. Obviously, that water line will be within the 25-foot buffer zone, and we are requesting a waiver for that work. It won't result in any adverse impact to the resource areas. And those drain pipes I did mention, I think they're equalizing pipes, but they don't see any flow in either direction. This portion of the wetland is relatively terrestrial. I think there's some drainage output further up to the northeast, but proximate to the driveway, it's very dry. Thanks. So moving down, there is a proposed what's labeled as infill below existing second floor. And I submitted some photographs of what that looks like. Thanks, Jeff. So there's a second floor living space, and that lower first floor is just going to be closed off to be habitable space. There's an existing deck and some dirt floor underneath that structure. There's no expansion of structure. It does fall within the 50-foot buffer zone, but that's on the back side, the wetlands on the back side of that, the house in that elevated second floor entry that is proposed to remain as is. So no expansion there, no adverse impact to the resource area. You can see it's a flat area. What's also being proposed is a secondary dwelling. I'll just let Jeff. Thank you. A secondary dwelling that's minimally within the 100-foot buffer zone. There's some associated grading with that. There's a IA septic system upgrade outside the 100-foot buffer zone. There's a proposed pool. The pool itself is outside the 100-foot buffer zone. A small portion of the patio is minimally within. Garage is also outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. Portions of the site are also land subject to flooding, but there's no proposed work activity or fill within those areas. Effectively, that is the extent of work activity. We did request a waiver for the water line installation. Again, no alternatives and no adverse impact there, along with the infill work for that first story enclosure. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions. Oh, sorry, just to interject, we are proposing some subsurface infiltration systems to collect roof runoff.
Thank you, Brian. Seth, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The infill area, is there a proposed foundation for that, or is that just going to be filled in with carpentry or whatever?
It's going to be on slab.
And is that, that doesn't go down into the water table?
No, it will meet the 2-foot separation, and it's a very shallow pour.
Thank you.
Oh.
All right, there we go. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? I know, Brian, I thought there were aspects of this packet submission that were maybe off. So like the map parcels that were highlighted, I think were an incorrect address. And I just want to make sure that is corrected for the final submission.
Yes, I see that now. Apologies, I didn't catch that. Yeah, I think that's Long Pond, an address. We can certainly send corrected locus maps on that front. Apologies.
I was more confused than I want to admit when I was trying to figure it out, but I think it'll just be good to have it corrected. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a few properties over. I'm looking at it.
If there are no other questions or comments from commissioners, I'll open it up to the public. Does not appear that we have public comment. So Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close this one?
Yes, you do.
Brian, would you like to close?
Please.
Is there a motion to close?
So moved.
A motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Joe. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Brian. So that moves us on to Tornovich Realty Trust at 21 Allens Lane. And this is represented by Paul Santos.
Thank you. Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors on behalf of the Navish family for a property located at 21 Allens Lane. This is an application or a notice of intent for the proposed construction of a single-family dwelling with associated grading, landscaping, and utility installation within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The plan before you depicts a vegetated wetland located on the Nantucket Islands Land Bank property, which is to the west of the Tornavish parcel. Line was flagged in February of this year by David Haynes, and there is an associated report and data forms in the file. The intent here is to create an additional housing unit for Morgan Tornavish and Eddie Coffin to stay basically on this lot with two other dwellings that are occupied by the family. Morgan's mom and dad occupy the home in the front, and her sister occupies an existing dwelling to the north of the proposed dwelling. The site itself is serviced by town water and town sewer, and the intent is to build an approximately 33-foot by 27.5-foot single-family home with a full foundation. It'll be a modular home constructed on the property. No waivers are requested or required for the work. The 25-foot buffer zone is essentially off property onto the land bank property. The 50-foot no build does come onto the subject property, but the dwelling has been kept outside of that particular area. The land has been subdivided recently, went through the public hearing process through the planning board. Ultimately, this will sit on a covenant lot. But for right now, it is on a larger lot, which would be a secondary dwelling to an existing dwelling that's on the property. Happy to answer any questions that the commission may have with regard to the application.
Thank you, Paul. I know I have a question right off the bat. I never loved these subdivided wetland properties. I'm concerned not necessarily about the new dwelling, but the one next door. And I have issue permitting the new dwelling right on the 50 when we have dwelling inside the 50 currently. And then we're kind of subdividing it and adding more. So is there any mitigation on site or any possibility that they would move that other house out of the 50?
No, I mean, that's not on the table. They obviously, this Travishes are basically, this is not being developed for resale or anything. This is an attempt to keep their family on island in housing. That dwelling was permitted properly. It was permitted through the Conservation Commission, albeit some years ago previously. That dwelling has been there for some time now. Again, it is serviced by town water and town sewer. There's really not a lot happening out in the back. It's not a manicured lawn area out to the back. It's virtually, the back side of that is, generally graded, and then you're walking right into the vegetated buffer zone of the wetland area on the land bank property. So.
No, and I totally understand that it's a family property, but I feel like I have to at least state the issue.
No, I appreciate it. And again, this is currently subdivided through the conventional approval required process. What the intent would then be would be to add in a secondary residential lot line. Again, it wouldn't affect the layout of this plan here, but it would just be generally a way to have everyone have separate ownership of their particular dwellings.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no, so we'll see if there's any public comment. Also looks like no. Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close?
Yes, you do.
Paul, would you like to close?
I would, thank you.
Is there a motion to close? Motion made by Ian. Mark, I'll give you the second. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And that moves us on to Nantucket Hotel Holdings LLC at 77 Easton Street, also represented by Paul Santos.
Again, thank you, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors, representing the applicant Nantucket Hotel Holdings LLC. This is a notice of intent filing for a project at 77 Easton Street, which you all know as the Point Breeze, Nantucket Hotel. I'm dating myself a little bit. Mark Snyder, the owner of the property, is also on the call and available for any questions that you may have today. This specifically is a notice of intent to replace what is known as the East Cottage. That cottage is located on the easterly portion or rear of the hotel complex. It's abutted on the east by the Ganella property, and that cottage has been there. I looked at the assessors today, and I think it was prior to 2000, but it's been in that general location for a number of years. Was renovated somewhat when the hotel was renovated as part of the Nantucket Hotel expansion and complex. And for those of you who may not recognize where it is, it's basically on the backside. It's a one-story cottage that's existed there for some time. The cottage itself, the site itself, is located within the flood zone. There is a bordering vegetated wetland to the north that kind of falls generally in line with the property line to the north. So we have both vegetated wetland buffer zones, and we're also in land subject to coastal storm flowage. The intent here is to either move the cottage off of site or demolish it and put it in its location, a modular structure that would be the same exact ground cover as the building that is currently there. This went through a number of hearings before the planning board. And in fact, we had some other expansion work that we were proposing as part of the planning board application that, through a combination of concerns with the planning board, abutters, the choice was made to focus strictly on the east cottage and limit the project to that particular area. So the replacement of the cottage has been approved by the planning board, with the caveat is that we could not expand the ground cover for the purposes of zoning of the structure itself. So within the area itself, the structure itself sits on a combination of a block and concrete foundation. It predates current regulations. There are no engineered flood vents that on the building, and a free flow of flood waters obviously would be obstructed under the current configuration of the building. The intent would be to place a new concrete foundation conforming to the current flood standards with appropriate flood vents on the perimeter of the foundation wall. The building itself is actually not that far below the existing flood elevation, so it will be raised, but not dramatically. I think it's actually less than a foot that the first floor would have to be raised in order to be compliant with the current flood zone regulations. The existing structure and some of the improvements associated with it are currently within a 25-foot wetland setback and also within the 50-foot no build setback. So what we have provided is a plan which kind of depicts what the proposal is. And I'd like to walk you through we've asked for waivers, obviously, because we're replacing structure within the regulated zones. But we have provided a benefits analysis as part of the application, and I'd like to kind of walk through that component of the application. Approximately 345 square feet of structure, which includes decks, building, and an existing concrete pad, will be removed from the 25-foot buffer zone. Approximately 330 square feet of area abutting the vegetated wetland, which includes a portion of the concrete pad location and a lawn area, will be planted with native buffer plantings. Those buffer plantings are depicted on the plan, and they are listed here as bayberry, winterberry, sweet pepper bush, and viburnum. Approximately 65 square feet of the structure, deck and building will be removed from the 50-foot buffer zone on the west-facing portion of the building, while 183 square feet will be added to the east of the building. There is a notched area on the back side of the east side of the existing building. We would be infilling a portion of that within that particular area. Proposed east cottage will be elevated outside of the flood zone, AE elevation 7. Minimum first floor of the proposed cottage, based on the 9th edition of the Mass Building Code, is proposed to be at elevation 8.3. So when we've also provided a chart which defines the 25-foot no disturb, the 50-foot no build. And when we look at the overall net benefit, structure removed 410 square feet within the 25 and 50 square foot of restoration, 330 square feet of additional building. That's an add of 183 for an overall net benefit of 557 square feet overall net benefit to the project itself. We feel that the placement of a flood compliant foundation would also factor into the equation for the net benefit analysis. Currently, the building is a one-story structure. The intent here is to also add a second story. HDC, we have not proceeded to the HDC at this point, as the planning board was the first stop. Then we're coming here, and then I think the intent would be for Mark to move forward with any type of proposals at the HDC. The plan that you see on the screen there, the green areas effectively kind of represent both the buffer zone or native area planting, the areas of removal, which is the concrete pad, and some of the building area the building area component that have been, that are proposing to be removed outside of the 25 and the 50. The kind of salmon colored area, I guess, or pink area is is the new building itself. And then the area, the 183 square feet of area within the 50 that would be infilled as part of the proposal. We have submitted a waiver request that goes along with the benefits analysis. And that is part of the application also. The intent here is to gain some management housing within the expanded structure. There's also an expansion of some of the guest rooms, still within the approval of the original permit that was issued by the planning board. It's not an expansion within regards to that component of it. And not that it has much to do with, I think, with your jurisdiction, but that's what the intent here is, to get some additional employee housing on site. We had looked at expanding the structure over by where the existing lap pool is. It was in some cases within your jurisdiction, but the planning board felt that that was just too intense of a request for the site itself. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Mark is here also in case any specific questions come up with regard to the hotel operation and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering if any thought was given to elevating and renovating the existing structure rather than moving that offsite and bringing a new structure on. I think that would be less impact to those wetland buffer zones. And I was hoping the applicant will consider that.
Thank you, Seth. Mr. Snyder, go
I
ahead.
didn't know if you wanted a response or if I should listen. I apologize.
No, go ahead. If you have an answer or response, this would be a great time.
That is an excellent suggestion, and I wish we could do that. The building is quite antiquated and it's in very poor condition. It was actually one of the original cottages at the White Elephant Hotel, and 30, 40 years ago it was moved over. It's in very poor condition, and structurally it really couldn't handle doing that. To lift it was a problem, and we also were trying to gain manager housing, which we're so desperate to find, and that's why we added the second level.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Ian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Paul, it says on the plan that you're removing 345 square feet, and in the description, but then when I look at the drawing, it looks as though you're adding a substantial amount in terms of a new deck. Am I misunderstanding the drawing?
That's what right now is enclosed building, Ian. It's kind of into the background, but that's already that's the building. And the green is the expanded port. That the building will be removed and it will just become.
Okay, thank you. And obviously the deck will allow water infiltration.
Correct.
Yeah.
In fact, the whole building now will, it's an obstruction now because everything is enclosed, but we're now gaining the entire building as far as that goes.
Right, and I just was ascertaining that it's going to be a normal deck with gaps in it for the rainwater to go through.
Yeah, I think it's actually, that might be roofed. There might be I'm trying to think, Mark, do you remember, is there a roofed portion over that deck?
There is, but
Yeah.
The deck would be wooden exactly as he is asking.
Yeah. And the entire building, the roof drains would be into the gravel area below, which is what we've been typically doing now in the flood zone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no, so we'll open it up for public comment. Does not appear that we have any public comment at this time. So Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close?
Yes, you do.
Paul, would you like to close?
I would, thank you.
All right, is there a motion to close?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Linda, seconded by Joe. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Plandowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that moves us on to 5 QPR LLC at 5 Quays Pastures Road, represented by Mark Ritz.
Good evening, Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicants at 5 Quays Pasture. What you have in front of you this evening is a notice of intent requesting permission to construct a shed just outside of the 50-foot buffer zone to a BVW and to relocate some pool equipment from just inside the 50-foot buffer zone to just outside the 50-foot buffer zone behind the shed. That is pretty much the extent of the proposal. I don't know if Jeff can throw the plan up on the screen so everyone can see it.
You explained it much faster than I got the plan up.
No problem. You can see the pool equipment is the gray box just below the 50-foot buffer zone label. That's going to go up behind the shed, which is the black box just outside the 50 on the northern part of the plan. That's pretty much the extent of this project.
Thank you, Mark. All right. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? I'm not seeing any commissioners' comments or questions, so I'll open it up for public comment. Also does not appear that we have any public comment at this point. Jeff, do we have everything we would need to close?
We sadly don't have a DEP number for this one.
No, I missed that little detail. All right, Mark, so would you like to continue for 2 weeks then?
Yes, we'd like to continue to the next meeting, and possibly if Jeff can draft an order for that one, maybe for the next meeting, that'd be great.
Well, we had one ready for tonight, and for whatever reason, DEP didn't send us one for this one or the next one. So,
Well, we will continue to the next meeting then, please.
Okay, so this will continue until November 10th then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And that moves us on to our next one, Stephen L. Cohen, trustee at 6 and 11 East Hallowell Lane, represented by Mark Ritz.
Once again, Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicants at 6 and 11 East Hallowell. The project before you this evening is a request to redevelop the property, rebuild the existing dwelling, do some additional, minor site improvements. Right now, there's an existing structure on the property that is located partially inside the 50-foot buffer zone, approximately 25 square feet of the existing house. The existing house is shown on the plan in the blue line in the background. The proposed dwelling is the heavier black line overlaid on top of that. Approximately 25 square feet of the existing structure is inside the 50-foot coastal bank buffer, and approximately 425 square feet of the existing deck are within the 50-foot buffer zone. because of our irregular lot shape and setbacks, we are pretty up against the setbacks. The structure we are proposing, approximately 5 square feet, just the very northeast corner of the structure, just barely crosses the 50-foot buffer zone. And so that's a reduction of about 20 square feet of building within the 50-foot. And we're proposing to reconfigure the existing deck so that only 335 square feet of the proposed new deck will be inside the 50-foot buffer zone. So we're going from 25 building down to 5, and from 425 deck down to 335. So a total reduction of structure inside the 50 of about 110 square feet. And as I said with this one, you can see because of the irregular lot line on the western part of the property, we're really up against setbacks, and we don't have much room where we can slide this house back as it sits. Other site work, there isn't, an additional portion of the house outside the 100-foot buffer. There's a proposed garage and septic system, which are all outside of the 100-foot buffer. We are proposing to construct septic tanks. There was already a septic upgrade approved for this property under a previous order. We're proposing to put the septic tanks in exactly the same location where they were previously approved, just outside the 50-foot buffer to the east of the house. We're proposing to replant any disturbed vegetation inside the 50-foot with similar vegetation to what is there now, which is primarily beach grass. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. So we'll open it up for public comment. Does not appear that we have public comment. And I know we're waiting on a DEP file number. So again, if there, oh, Mark Beal.
I just had a question. I noticed you're inching your way into the 50-foot no bill zone there. I don't much care for that. And I wonder if you can work the design so it doesn't quite just even encroach on it, Mark.
As I said, we have tried to reduce over what is currently there, and we've tried to slide the house back as far as we can, given the setbacks on that western portion of the property. We've just barely got a corner hanging over, but again, it's about a 20-foot reduction of building structure in that 50. So I think, we're trying our best to get that as far back as we can.
How many square feet is the building, Mark? The ground cover.
I am not sure. It's not labeled on the plan within jurisdiction. I'm not sure. I'd have to check on that, unfortunately.
Mark Beal, I appreciate your questions. I kind of thought the same thing, that it looked to me like the house is being expanded quite a bit. So if they expanded it a little bit less, they could probably move it out of the 50. So I kind of had the same initial thought. Mark Ritz.
Well, we can, since we have to continue this anyway for the next meeting, we can, sharpen our pencils a little bit and see if we can change that footprint ever so slightly, because, as you can see, it is a very small incursion. Hopefully we can wiggle that enough to get it out.
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I know we and the wetland buffers would appreciate that. Seth,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree entirely, and I also am assuming that the deck footprint is proposed to be, a structural element, not to be cantilevered. Is that correct?
Yeah, the deck is currently, just slightly above ground elevation, a few feet off ground. And we're proposing the same kind of deck. We're just basically reconfiguring and reducing what's already there. A portion of the, basically the existing deck footprint, the majority of the existing deck footprint is staying. We're pulling it back further from the 25-foot buffer, and a small portion is being extended to the east side, with an overall reduction of about 90 square feet of deck compared to what's there currently.
thank you, Mark. Any other questions or comments for Mark before we continue? It looks like no. So we'll continue this until November 10th.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that moves us on to amended orders of conditions. We have Phillips trustee at 19 East Tristram Ave. And we have to make a motion to accept the withdrawal. Seth, are you making that motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Mark, I'll give you the second. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to 16 Easton continued. So 41 Monomoy Road LLC at 41 Monomoy Road.
Madam Chairman, I have to recuse from this. I did the original subdivision, but I never worked on this lot, but it's close enough.
Okay, thank you, Linda. And it looks like we have Ryan Maxwell on to present this.
Yep. Thank you. For the record again, Ryan Maxwell with Bracken Engineering. This project was issued an order of conditions back in May of this year, and we're back tonight seeking an amendment. The intent of the changes was to create a level lawn area below the pool and the patio. In order to do this, we were proposing a retaining wall at about 52 feet from the BVW and revising the grading accordingly. As shown on the plan, the majority of the disturbed slopes will be left to naturalize, including the downhill side of the retaining wall. We're also relocating the pool equipment outside of the 100-foot buffer and placing it behind the shed. And that is it for changes. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ryan. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. So I'll open it up to the public. Also, does not appear that we have public comment. So Jeff, has staff been out to review this site, and do we have everything we would need to issue an amended order?
We believe you do, yes.
Ryan, I'm assuming you'd like us to issue tonight?
Yes, please.
Okay, is there a motion to issue the amended order? Ian, are you making that motion?
I am, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Is there a second? Seconded by Joe. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski.
Aye.
So that carries with Commissioner Williams recused.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And that moves us on to requests for determination of applicability. We have Manila at 9 Gingy Lane, represented by Mark Ritz.
Good evening, Mark Ritz from Site Design, representing the applicant at 9 Gingy Lane. This is an RDA to construct two small segments of retaining wall and do some filling and grading, just barely within the 100-foot buffer zone to two offsite wetlands. The wetlands are separated from our property by other developed property. And you can see on the plan Jeff's got on the screen in the lower left-hand corner, the 100-foot buffer zone is in blue, and we're proposing a small section of retaining wall and a little bit of grading there. And then also on the east side of the plan, there's another small section of retaining wall just inside the 100-foot buffer zone there. All other structures and everything else will be outside the 100-foot. It's just the retaining walls and the fill behind them. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. Jeff, have you guys been out to review and do you have a recommendation?
Yes, and we do. We would recommend a -3 to allow for the work within the buffer zone and not requiring a notice of intent.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Would somebody like to make that motion to issue a -3? Mark's making the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Beal,
Aye.
Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that moves us on to M2D3 Irrevocable Trust at 31 Washing Pond Road. Do we have Jeff Blackwell? Oh, Brian Madden's taking this one.
Yep, covering
Alright.
for Jeff.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Brian Madden from LEC Environmental. I had flagged the BVW along Washing Pond here, and the proposed project involves a proposed deck with about, I think there's about on the order of 6 feet encroachment, nine feet encroachment into the outer 100-foot buffer zone. This was within an open landscaped area. I think at the closest point, the deck is 94 linear feet from the BBW. So just a small encroachment into the buffer zone. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions or comments from commissioners? All right. Any public comment on this one? RJ?
Thank you, Chair Arisman. RJ Turcott on behalf of the Nantucket Land Council. We actually just started sampling Washing Pond this year and doing water quality work there. And it started having a harmful algal bloom back in the beginning of September. And as of today is still experiencing sporadic harmful algal blooms. So from the Land Council's perspective, any sort of advising the commission can do on the structure and any runoffs that it may produce would be really great for what is a strained system topographically below where this is going in. So thank you for letting me comment.
Thank you, RJ. Jeff, do we have the ability through the RDA process to require any runoff from that porch to be infiltrated?
I mean, you can loosely condition RDAs for that. Having been on that site, I mean, I would say it's really hard to see. It's pretty heavy natural vegetation for about 80 feet before you get to that pond. I think you could ask them to do it, but I think in my professional opinion, there's enough of a naturally vegetated buffer, that the deck runoff is probably not that huge a concern. But I think maybe suggesting through the process that minimizing the use of agricultural chemicals on the property may be a good idea.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. All right, so Brian?
Yeah, and just to point out, I believe the deck is going to be wooden deck with some deck spacing, so it's going to allow for some natural infiltration, and it's supported by sonotubes, so not any significant regrading, changing of the drainage patterns. And as Jeff mentioned, there's some pretty dense woody vegetation bordering the pond, but there's also a transitional kind of mowed grassland before it hits that. So there's a lot of attenuation going towards the pond.
Okay.
But I appreciate the comments.
Thank you. So if there's no more comments, Jeff, have you guys been out to review, and do you have a recommendation?
Yes, we have been, and I think we're comfortable with recommending the -3, allowing for the work. And if people would like the comment in there with minimization of agricultural chemicals on the property as a suggestion, I think that's fine as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that suggestion is harmful in any way, so might as well include it.
For my bad joke of the day, not as harmful as the algae.
True. All right, so would somebody like to make a motion then to issue a -3 with our little comment about agricultural chemicals? Ian, you making that
Sure.
motion? All
Why
right,
not?
is there a second? Seconded by Joe. So by roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Plandowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries now unanimously. We lost Mark, I think, at the beginning of that one.
Where'd he
Thank you.
go?
Thank you, Brian. I think he had to leave for the evening, if I remember that correctly. So that moves us on to minor modifications. We have 34 Easton Street Realty Trust at 34 Easton Street, represented by Art Gasparo.
If he's not here, I'm happy to take this one. It's fairly straightforward.
Yeah, I don't see him here.
So I know there's stuff that I thought he might miss, but I wasn't sure. But what the minor modification is, this was a approved new 2-story structure that was going on the property. They are looking now to install a geothermal system as part of the heating and cooling system on the lot, and they're requesting the minor modification for the installation of the geothermal wells.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. Jeff, have you guys been out to review the site?
Yes, and we feel comfortable with issuing the minor mod.
Okay. Is there a motion to issue the minor mod?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Plandowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. That moves us on to Family Ties AC LLC at 11 Alliance Lane, represented by Brian Madden.
Thank you very much. Representing the applicant, Brian Madden. An order of conditions was issued back in September 2021 for redevelopment of this property. Basically, the updates include minor revisions to the configuration location of the proposed structures, pool, game court, driveway, hardscaping, landscaping, utilities, and grading. All the structures remain outside the 50 foot, no work in the 25 foot, and greater than 50% of the area between the 25 and 50 foot will be preserved. No waivers are required and none were issued previously. And that's it.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. Jeff, have you guys been out to review?
Yes, and we are comfortable with this one as well.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to issue the minor mod?
So move, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Joe. So by roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. And that moves us on to 196 Hummock Pond Road LLC at 196 Hummock Pond Road, represented by David Haynes.
Hi again. Yes, this is a minor mod at 196 Hummock Pond Road that was issued last year, or earlier this year. It's some tweaking of the structure, the main house on the property. Three areas over on the western side, partly outside of the buffer zone. There's a couple of window wells that were proposed, and they'd like to make it into one larger window well outside of 100. The patio on the south side of the house, there was an approved patio there. They'd like to extend it. Still dry laid patio, mostly outside of 50, does extend a couple of feet into the 50 on one end, but still dry laid, not a structure. And the third change would be there was a room entryway that was entryway and mudroom that they would like to convert to a stairway. And that's outside of 50 and meets the regulations. This work all meets the regulations. It's all within the original proposed limit of work that was approved and is mostly over existing approved structure. Very minor in nature for the changes. And that's it.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Looks like no. Jeff, have you guys been out to look at this site?
Yes, and this one is also all good.
Okay. Is there a motion to issue the minor mod?
So move, Madam Chair.
I think Ian beat you with his hand, so I'm going to give it to Ian.
Second.
I'll give you the second. So by roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously.
Thank you. Have a nice Halloween.
You too. It gets really wild in the school systems around Halloween, so looking forward to it.
Sugar.
All right, so that moves us on to certificates of compliance. We have Reed Pond Nominee Trust at 129 and 137 Cliff Road.
All right. I'm gonna
Jeff?
take this one because this one's kind of complicated, but kind of not at the same time. Oh, here comes Art. He missed his one. This was for some roadway construction quite some time ago. And when it was originally issued, they issued the permit against all of the residential lots and the roadway lot. So what this certificate of compliance is seeking to do, because the road and drainage structures are all installed, is to close out that order for the roadway construction on the residential lots and leaving it open on the roadway lot itself for a little bit of final work just within the roadway parcel. So we're recommending that that partial certificate can be issued, and hopefully that explanation made sense.
I think it did to me. But any questions or comments from commissioners? I guess my only question, Jeff, we're issuing the partial cert with no ongoing conditions, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Would somebody like to make that motion?
So moved.
So Linda's making the motion. Joe, I'll give you the second. So by roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to North by West LLC at 75 Pocomo Road. And it says Beal is the representative.
Oh, no, I'm gonna do this one too. Sorry, I'll probably just cover all of these if it makes it easier. This is what we've been doing a little bit. This was originally for some brush cutting and the installation of beach stairs. And after a little bit of bushwhacking by Will today, going through, because I haven't been maintaining the path, the beach stairs are there and were constructed in compliance, but I think he would agree that there doesn't look like they're in regular use, but they're there and in compliance. So we recommend that this could be issued as well.
Thank you, Jeff. No ongoing conditions with this one?
Nope.
Okay. Any questions or comments from commissioners? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to issue the cert?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Seth, seconded by Linda. So by roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. Moves us on to Margaret P. Kelly Trust at 39 Quays Road. I know Paul's still on, but Jeff, do you want to take it?
Yeah, this one's old. This is like a 1999 order of conditions for the construction of a house and garage. The same house and garage are still on the site. The site's still in compliance with that order. So we're recommending it could be issued with no ongoing conditions.
Thank you, Jeff. If there aren't any questions or comments from commissioners, would somebody like to make a motion to issue the cert?
So moved.
Ian beat you with his hand, Linda, so I'm going to give it to Ian.
Cool.
Give you the second. So by roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to Silver Fox Partners Real Estate LLC at 235 Nantucket Road.
All right, we had filed this one before and finally made it back after some repair and fixing. But I think we feel like that the site has come into compliance. The issue that we were primarily fixing was the compensatory storage area that was constructed a part of the project wasn't sized completely correctly, and it is now. So we've corrected that issue. However, we do feel that there are some ongoing conditions necessary for this one related to the operation and maintenance of the pool. So we are recommending that it be issued with ongoing condition 21, which prohibits chemical treatments between November 1st and May 1st. 22, that all chemical treatments stop 3 weeks prior to any draining or discharging of the pool. And 23, that the pool should not be drained or discharged to an area within commission jurisdiction. There's a little bit more to that, but that's the basic gist. So that's our staff recommendation.
Thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to issue the cert with ongoing conditions 21, 22, and 23?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Great. Motion made by Linda. Is there a second? Seconded by Joe. So by roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. That moves us on to our orders of conditions. Jeff emailed these out earlier today.
I did, in error again, because it's such an old filing, is I forgot to include Brandon Point Club, but I do have a draft of that I can share on my screen if you guys are still interested.
Yeah, I think let's go ahead and start with it and share the draft that's that you've got on the screen.
Sure.
So we'll begin with Brant Point Club LLC at 6 and 8 North Beach Street and 4 Dolphin Court.
Yes, so if you remember, this was Brian Madden's project from earlier tonight. For the a couple of new structures and some renovations and the above ground pool. So I have kind of our standard pool conditions that are there. I forgot our new lighting condition, so I'll have to fix that. And then our regular fill condition. And then we've been starting to include this in these areas like this that are prone to that, to include straw wattles on the sill fencing as well, for a little added protection, especially in these areas that can have water from time to time. But other than that, didn't really have a lot.
Thank you, Jeff. Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So for the lighting condition, the resource area that the pool is in is land subject to coastal storm flowage, and there's the minimal 100-foot buffer on site, but you can't direct downwards and away from land subject to coastal storm flowage, because those are if you're directing downwards, you're directing towards it, not away from it.
So Jeff, what are your thoughts on that? I don't know that we maybe need the lighting condition or specify for it's for the other buffer zone.
I'm looking for my quick sheet on the code reference here, but I think maybe it'd be better just to put all lighting shall be in compliance with the bylaw reference to the town lighting bylaw instead, or just remove it completely.
No, I think it would be good to have the town lighting bylaw in there, because I'm sure they'll have pathway lights and things like that.
I hate those lights.
Yeah.
That's not Nantucket.
Well, and they're just on year round in some properties.
And they really are annoying when you're in a dark sky situation. All of a sudden you got all these pathway lights growing everywhere.
I mean, they're torching their property of having pollinators, because nighttime lights affects even daytime pollinators as well as moths and things. So
how about those lovely lights that are under trees that point straight up into the sky?
Those are totally illegal.
Yeah.
All right. So Jeff, are we adding that condition in, or do you want to continue this order of condition to next week to make sure it's tightened up?
No, I'm just trying to quickly pull the correct code number. Okay. Oh my God, I can't believe I actually got that right off the top of my head. So I had it correct. It is 102. Man, on my game today, I guess.
You're a pro.
Well, they changed all the regulation ones, and I'm still all messed up with the section 390, whatever numbers they are, as opposed to the old one. So anything that stayed the same, I kind of look out. So now that 22 reads, I'll put all lighting shall be in compliance with chapter 102 of the Code of the Town of Nantucket, and that's the exterior lighting bylaw.
Thank you, Jeff.
Because I agree, it's kind of weird to try to say you're going to point it down away from the flood zone, which is down.
Remember, I'm recused from voting on this one.
Okay. I had forgotten even from just an hour and 45 minutes ago. So thank you for that reminder.
We're brain dead.
Any other thoughts on this order? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to issue as amended? Joe, are you making that motion?
Yes.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski.
Aye.
All right, this carries with Commissioner Williams recused. And that moves us on to, oh, do we not have Sunset House in here?
No, that one, I apologize. That one is continued till 11:10.
Okay, missed that. All right, so that moves us on to Boathouse Realty Trust at 52 Warren's Landing Road.
Sure. So this is the one we closed last time. This is the one that Mr. Leahy was self-representing for the number that I couldn't do math on, the 45 cubic yards of beach material and some dune grass planting in front of his pre-existing wall for the house there on Warren's Landing Road. So kind of going through the minutes and the instructions from the commission. There were some questions on the final construction protocol and planting plan. So I copied and pasted that. So we included that prior to the start of work, the applicant shall file the final construction protocol and planting plan for commission. That's what I get for copy and pasting for commission approval. So he'll just bring that back and you guys can say yay or nay. Then the applicant shall provide sand delivery tickets for the final amount of sand used for the project, just to log that in. And then this 21, all sediment used for the project shall be beach compatible sand as defined by sieve analysis and visual compatibility. Man, and visual compatibility with the existing sediments. The sediment shall be tested for any chemical or biological contaminants and nutrient levels prior to delivery. We can talk about it in a second. I'll just run through the rest. A report including location photographs shall be provided to the commission showing the conditions prior to work started and at the conclusion of the growing season. All reports until a cert is issued. Plantings for no cultivars, and then the plantings need to survive at 90%.
Thank you, Jeff. Ian?
Yes, so Jeff, you need a D on and to make it and nutrient levels prior to delivery.
Yes, I caught that when I made some edits on the fly here. So,
Okay.
but thank you.
Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this discussion came up in the regulatory update too, but visually compatible doesn't really mean anything specific. So I think if we're going to put that in, we need to have some way to analyze that compatibility. I know that there's been discussion on, well, there aren't really great ways that aren't subjective, but we need to pick one and go with it.
Thank you, Seth. So would you recommend removing that completely from this order or adding Munsell test color?
Would you feel better if we just put in visually compatible as determined by a similar Munsell color?
Perfect.
That's fine for me. And who is determining this? Is it the commission staff that's determining it, or is it the applicant or the contractor that's determining it?
No, that will be, they have to provide the sieve analysis to us before they do it. Anyways, but I'll add that to the end.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Seth, for kind of pushing this one. And I know Ian, you have been talking about this one for forever, so.
Well, it's a tough one.
I think it'll be easier once we have it in the regs, but I thought this seemed like an easy one to give it a crack as a condition. So, so now that 21 reads, all sediment used for the project shall be beach compatible sand as defined by sieve analysis and visually compatible as determined by similar Munsell scale with the existing sediments. The sediment shall be tested for any chemical or biological contaminants and nutrient levels prior to delivery. These determinations shall be confirmed by commission staff.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Jeff.
I move to approve as amended.
Oh, hold on, sorry.
Okay, I just want to get that Munsell definition solidified in stone, so to speak.
Sorry to be annoying, but it has to say moist Munsell color because that's the really scientific way of doing it.
All right, so we'll just change that to by similar moist Munsell color, the existing sediment.
Have at it, Ian.
Now, I'll defer to Seth to make the motion to move to approve as amended. I'll second it.
So moved.
Great. You're given the second, Ian?
Thank you.
All right. So by roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on. Guess we have,
I think the next one will be 234 Nantucket Road.
yeah, 234 Nantucket Road. Why can't
Sorry, we got a little happy in drafting because we were giving Will a crack at putting them together. So I won't tell you which ones he did and which ones I did. It'll be a little game that you guys can play with yourselves to determine who did what. Hopefully you can't pick the differences, but we'll see.
All right, so 11 at 234 Nantucket Road.
All right, so this is the one that had the building infill underneath the first
Underneath,
floor.
yeah.
And the secondary dwelling and some patio and some septic system upgrades. The one that we added at the end, the pool itself is proposed outside of our jurisdiction. But we've been including that loose condition to have the pool to not be drained or discharged into an area within the commission's jurisdiction. And we'll talk about it more later in enforcements for something. But I finally got DEP to confirm that that condition is 100% A-OK in their opinion. So we'll talk to that a little bit more in a minute. I know we'd always been a little leery on it before, but they said, no, that's fine. So.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for communicating with DEP about it. Any questions or comments from commissioners on the 234 Nantucket Road draft? Seth?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I apologize for not catching this sooner because I know this condition basically came from me, but for number 19, the fill condition, at the end, when we talk about invasive species, can we add on in all of these that any invasive species found in the area with fill shall be removed and disposed of appropriately?
You don't want them just dumped over the property line?
I mean, they could just remove them from the 100-foot buffer and then just leave them at 101 foot at this, how the conditions are written right now.
So I just added to that, I just put where it says any invasive species found in these areas with fill shall be removed and appropriately disposed of.
Off property.
Perfect. Well, I have disposed of off property.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank
And
you.
we'll just update that for every other project moving forward.
Sadly, we kind of copy and paste that condition from one to the other, so that is easy to do.
Gotta work smarter, not harder.
I mean, if we're dotting every I and crossing every T and it should be destroyed responsibly off property.
I mean,
In a
it's
sense, otherwise they could just toss it over the fence. I mean, to what extent do we want to make sure to
That
emphasize?
is not proper disposal.
No,
Yeah.
there is I'm gonna chime in. There is a invasive plant material disposal site at the dump. The blue dumpster.
Yes, and if you happen to go there and see the lovely sign, it was designed by yours truly. So we generally have in other permits in invasive species said that all material should be disposed of at the Nantucket landfill invasive species, but then there were some issues that came up with like tree related removal. So I think appropriate disposal is fine.
Yeah, I think it specifically came up for people doing things like chipping Japanese black pine. That they're not putting the chips into the blue dumpster, so.
Fair enough.
All right, any other additions, amendments? If not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
I think Joe beat you with his hand, so I'll give you the second, Linda.
Oh.
Give Joe the motion. So by roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. And that moves us on to Tornovich Realty Trust at 21 Allen's Lane.
I don't think we really
add
had
to
any
19?
conditions, but I will copy and paste the condition that we wrote for 234 Nantucket Road for the fill condition in for the one that we had to include what we just talked about.
And this one too, should it have a lighting condition just off the back of the new house?
Sure, why don't, we'll do all exterior lighting shall be directed away from the resource area and in compliance with chapter 102 of the code of the town of Nantucket. So number 20, all exterior lighting shall be directed away from the resource area and in compliance with chapter 102 of the code of the town of Nantucket.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions, amendments? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to issue as amended?
So moved.
Motion made by Linda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Seth. So by roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
That carries unanimously. And that moves us on to Nantucket Hotel Holdings LLC at 77 Easton Street.
So before anyone mentions that, I've already changed the condition 19 for what's there. And then we did our site inspection. We did notice that there were a couple sections of gutter that were stored in the buffer zone, kind of adjacent to that building. So we specifically put a condition to remove it. And then where the driveway curves there, I don't think it's by any fault, but there's occasionally looks like some debris from the driveway because it comes right up to it. That's
Now, Pat,
gone towards the resource area that we have
left in great debt.
no. That we mentioned just to keep it out. But I'm open to any other conditions or thoughts from people too.
So should this one have our lighting condition too?
Sure. I mean,
Anytime we can put that on, we should put it on.
Yes, I think we end up with like two slightly different ones. The one that has to be pointing down and away from the wetland versus
Wetlands, yep.
just the like
Dark skies.
lumens, yeah. But I agree, one of the two should be on. Seth, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I know that location of the building is very constrained, especially with what else is going on in the site. So I'd like to see us require that none of the building materials or construction equipment are stored within the buffer zone or the 50-foot buffer zone.
Thank you, Seth. That's a good one. Any other amendments, questions, comments?
All right, so I just added 21 was lighting, 22, it just reads, all construction materials and equipment shall be stored, wow, I put within, stored outside the 50-foot setback.
That would have been unique.
Yeah, that would have taken some explaining when they called them and like, really? You want us to keep it in the wetlands? I'm very confused.
Might have to call the DEP on you guys. All right, if there's no other amendments, would somebody like to make a motion to issue as amended?
Madam Chair.
Ian, I think Ian got you, Linda, but I'll give you the second.
Okay.
Roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, aye, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously.
That's it.
That's it. We have no extensions of orders, so this moves us on to other business. We have approval of minutes from October 6th, 2022. I know I watched, but I wasn't there.
Same here. I watched, but I wasn't there. It was in New
Yeah.
Hampshire.
So we might need to carry these over. Seth?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, let's just carry them over.
Yeah. So we'll continue these minutes to the next time, but thank you, Terry, as always, for keeping such great minutes for us. That moves us on. We have a monitoring report for 16 Medui Creek Road.
But just put it on for acknowledgement, or if people have questions that we can send out to the applicant's representative, we're happy to do that.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. Then we have discussion of regulatory update. I know we have that scheduled. It's November 17th, right?
All right, hold on.
Just confirming. Yes, it is the off week that we have after the next meeting, but.
So it's November 17th, 5 o'clock, but that's not the public hearing. That's still us wordsmithing.
Yes,
Okay.
I'll have that draft with the updates from our last discussion, hopefully out before the end of next week, so everyone at least has a couple weeks to take a look at it and have some thoughts.
Thank you, Jeff. Seth?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Jeff. One of the things I forgot to mention when we had our meeting, but it will be quick, is I know at one point there was discussion of coordinating with the Nantucket Biodiversity Initiative to have one of their representatives come and help us update the invasive list as they've done in the past. And I am happy to put that along to them if you would like.
Yeah, that would be great. I know you're in their contact list much more than me at times, as you're kind of in charge now. So
Yes, I was recently elected the chair, so I can get on people's contact list pretty easily.
Oh, that'd be helpful.
Thank you, Seth. Any sort of collaboration on details like that is great for us. So if there aren't any more comments about the regulatory update, that'll be November 17th. And that moves us on to enforcement actions, potential enforcement actions.
Sure. So I'll kick us off here. We have one that's that's a current enforcement action, and then I have a new one for tonight. But if you guys remember, we issued out an enforcement for Brock's Court recently for 2 Brock's Court. Dan Malloy and Libby Frazier are here tonight to meet their timely response to the enforcement action. I know they each wanted to have a few words, so I was just gonna turn it over to Dan. That's okay, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Ian, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm a neighbor of Libby's. I live across the road, so I'm going to recuse myself. And
Okay, thank you, Ian. Dan, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Dan Malloy, site design engineering for the applicant and owner, not applicant, Elizabeth Frazier. She's also on the Zoom call as well. So I think what would like to do is just have Mrs. Frazier do a quick explanation as to what she thinks is happening, what her opinion is of what's going on, and then I'll be available to help out, answer questions going forward.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Mrs. Frazier?
Libby, if you unmute your microphone.
We may have to unmute it for her.
I don't think you can unmute for somebody.
Okay, how's that?
We can hear you now.
Perfect. Thank you, Libby.
Okay, super. Thanks. This is all new to me. I'm very unsavvy about computers. So anyway, I don't even know where to begin. So let's begin, I guess, with the yard, the garden, or the field. I have several invasive species. The major one being the Japanese knotweed. So I asked my gardener to try and get rid of some of that knotweed because it was marching across the field. And so he mowed down some and mowed a little bit too much, I guess. And so I just don't know what else to do. I'd like to be able to mow the field at least twice a year just to get rid of these invasive plants and just have it looking so horrible. And so I don't know what you have to say about this and what we can we work together on this or not? Or is it just cut in stone?
Well, I think we have to work together as the permitting body, and we work very well with people with wetlands on their properties or wetland buffers. So we will certainly work with you. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Jeff, can you recap for us what staff found on site?
Yeah, we had a report that we went out and looked at, and what we had seen, I think would be pretty accurately depicted. It didn't look like it was being regularly mowed, but the area that in the last round of permitting on the property was left to be vegetated wetland for the most part, the formerly kind of lawn area. Looked like it had been, I think irregular would be kind. I mean, it wasn't manicured or maintained, but definitely had been mowed. And then some of the vegetation that had been in there before, from the sounds of it in our talks with Mrs. Frazier, some of the shrubs that had gone in had died and been cut as process of that. So it sounds like we have some issues with invasive species back there as well. And then the other thing that we noted on our inspection report and saw as part of it is that there's a small shed that was constructed adjacent to the kind of permitted parking area that had not had benefit of a permit for its installation.
Could I mention also, I had planted as ordered the plants that you wanted me to plant 3 times. 3 times they died. So I really, really cannot afford to replant the same plants, that's good money after bad. I'll be happy to put in a sycamore tree because they like the roots wet. But planting all these plants you want me to plant is not working.
Thank
Not
you.
a sycamore maple, they're invasive.
Yeah, I'm curious, Jeff, when we had our, I'm assuming the last enforcement was rectified with a notice. Did we have like a survivability on there of the shrubs that we could kind of help Mrs. Frazier with, or a plant list for her?
We had a plant list. Sadly, we didn't really have some of those other provisions involved. But I think now, from the sounds of it, and with a little extra staff that we have, I think with her representative and some of us, we can try to put together an idea of maybe a way to tackle the invasive species, and then also a better list that will work on the property for the conditions that are there. And it's definitely next to a small, what I would consider forested wetland for Nantucket. It's not like the grand forested wetlands of like Western Mass or anything, but a pocket that's there. So I definitely think some level of tree may be appropriate in there if it's the proper species. But I think that's something that if you guys are interested in it, we can try to help facilitate that with Mr. Malloy.
Thank you, Jeff. And Seth, I know I saw your hand go up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I personally think that given the variety of questions that are out on site, that the best way to ameliorate these would be with a new notice of intent. I think that hearing what Libby says about the knotweed, I'll be the first one to tell you that not a fan of knotweed, but honestly, mowing knotweed is not a environmentally sensitive or effective way to do it. It's never going to work. And in many cases, mowing knotweed actually makes it worse, makes it spread laterally. It might be shorter, but the root system is longer, deeper, wider. So I would not recommend that. In terms of the planting of species, I'm sorry that the species you planted did not survive, but there is an open opportunity through any permitting process to seek an amendment or minor modification to the planting list. So if it didn't work 2 times, I don't know why it didn't. There was no request to come in and seek different plantings at that time. And I really just think we need a notice of intent to clear up all these issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. I would agree with you. And then I guess my last question is as well for Jeff. Is this new shed, is it within the 50?
I think Dan has to answer that.
I
Okay.
placed the shed in a place which would not be, it would be innocuous and just very sedate and not visible to this, that, and the other. I didn't know that I was doing something wrong. My neighbor had to come onto my property to see it and report it to you. And I'd be happy to move it, but I absolutely have to have it. I've been reduced now to having to rent my house, and I cannot have bicycles in the living room for the renters. My husband left me in millions of dollars of debt, and that is my first priority. I cannot afford to keep planting and planting. No, I did what Lombardi told me to do, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen. I cannot keep planting. If you want to plant, go for it.
Okay. Well, we have to rectify this enforcement order. And unfortunately, if previously required plants were removed, we do have to.
No, they weren't removed. They weren't removed. They died.
And the other, yeah. So I think probably the best way to do this, Jeff, is to work with them and have them present a notice of intent, with the shed being out of the 50 certainly, and trying to fix some of these problems.
Yeah, and
Yes.
like I said, we're happy to work with Dan to come up with a plan to try to address these issues and some of the planting and try to do it as expediently as possible.
Thank you, Jeff. Linda, go ahead.
I do agree with that. I think the only way for us to work out whatever we're gonna relieve her of, or whatever we're gonna require, is to have a notice of intent, a new application applied. I don't see any other way around it.
No, that is true. And was it 5 years ago that this came in before us?
Yeah, thereabouts. Listen, they've been hounding me for the past 6 years, if not 8 years, hounding me. And I need to ask you a question after all this is done.
Go ahead and ask your question, Mrs. Frazier.
Okay. I would like to have some clarity as to why I am singled out within this neighborhood. Everybody has wetland issues. One neighbor has a man-made pond that she claims is wetlands, but she empties that pond into the real wetlands every year and then fills it up. But she gets to mow her lawn, make a berm, plant some grass, and mow again. Then my other neighbor, whose house is nothing but wetlands.
Mrs. Frazier, I appreciate this. Anybody has the ability to report wetlands violations that they feel that.
I don't need to report it. I'm just asking you, why do you have to single me out? I can't mow, they can mow. My land has been mowed since the 1800s. So, why all of a sudden am I now singled out and have to plant and plant and plant? I cannot afford to plant. So, as I said.
If I can hop in, we did take in a report when we initially talked, and there are a few things that we're looking into that we're just trying to get enough information to see if there's action that we can recommend to the commission. We just haven't had a chance to conclude that for a lot of different reasons, but I think there'll be further reports for this area in general, probably for the next meeting.
Thank you, Jeff. That's what I remember well from the last time as well. So, are there any questions about how you need to proceed from either Dan or Mrs. Frazier as far as filing a notice of intent?
Yes.
Good.
Okay, now Dan, you go, and then I'll.
Right. So I think it sounds pretty clear. I'll talk to Jeff. We'll work out some of the issues with plantings, what maybe some ideas that will work or won't work, and I'll work with Libby and everyone else to craft something and a notice of intent to deal with the shed and the plantings. And we'll be back at a future meeting.
Okay, should I just leave it at that?
Perfect. That sounds good to me. And Will and I will coordinate with you, Dan, to get a plan of action together.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yep, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And Jeff, you mentioned there was another potential enforcement.
Yes. So if you guys haven't seen on social media or
I guess I can leave it at that, right?
Sorry about that. We had a little incident on Monday after our field viewing time where the police, our office, the harbor master's office, and the health department all received reports of a pool getting drained at 46 Monomoy Road. Let me bring up the map. I'll show you guys where it is. Sorry, I should have had this ready, but just waiting to see where the last one went. So the pool was being drained. And let me just dump it over here. And by the time the report had gotten to us, and we got there, and I apologize, the site itself right now is under construction in the aerial photograph, and that is no longer the case. It is fully constructed. Everyone see that okay? So there's the lot 5471. You can actually see the pool here. And it's a site that is out of commission jurisdiction. But what happened was they drained the pool in its entirety to do some work on the pool. The water was drained and pumped into this general area here, kind of where my hand is. It's tough to say for sure for where it was, but what happened is the water then got free of the vegetation, ran down through the parking lot, down the public access way, and then down onto the beach when we got there. So hopefully everyone could see that path. We got there in full admission. We arrived on the scene with the police officer. John Hedden, the chief environmental officer for the Board of Health, and I got there all about the same time-ish. And we're able to, we could all smell chlorine in the air and then kind of follow the trail of water down that access path. And John and I were both able to recover some sediment right at the base of the coastal bank there that still also smelled of chlorine. And as I went out further onto the beach, it did go away. So I'm not sure how far onto the beach it got. Not necessarily overly important. So where we're at with it, and this is what I confirmed with DEP, and this is when we were talking about the other condition about draining or discharging to an area within the commission's jurisdiction. The pool itself is not within jurisdiction, but the activity related to the pool that they conducted did impact and clearly impact an area within the commission's jurisdiction, both by scouring out the buffer zone within 100 feet of the top of the coastal bank, and then clearly discharged water that had some level of chlorine contamination onto the bank and onto the beach. And whether it got all the way to the surface water body, I don't think we'll ever know for sure, but based upon our kind of analysis of the site, I would say it either moved through the sand pretty quickly or made it out that far. So what we clarified for them is we are able to issue an enforcement action to mitigate the impacts to the resource area and its buffer zone. So we're recommending issuing that enforcement action to do that. I think from our end, requiring some level of repair and testing to that area would probably be appropriate. I do know for a fact that the Board of Health has issued an initial $1,000 fine to the property owner. That's kind of their max penalty that they can do for that. Is pursuing other avenues. We've also reported to Mass DEP. They're investigating what action they need to take. And the harbor master, through the federal no discharge zone and some of their harbor master regulations, are also in the process of issuing them a ticket with some level of monetary fine. I'm not sure where there's caps out at. But to initiate our process, we need to issue out that enforcement action. I'm happy to take questions though, if people have them.
Yeah, does anybody have questions? I see Seth, your hand was going up.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Firstly, I think we should issue our fine as well, albeit it's a small dollar amount. Just in this case, it still needs to be issued. And secondly, was it clear who did this pumping? Was it the property owner or contractor? If it was a contractor, we should issue the enforcement against a contractor and against the property owner.
So yes, we actually, the health department was able to contact the company directly who had done the work. They issued their fine, as the regulations call for, to the actual property owner in this case. I believe we can also issue, we can have both parties named under the enforcement action. I do think it's important to keep the property owner is ultimately responsible for who they're bringing onto the property, involving them too. But we could certainly issue to both, but we have records. I'll say the company involved did meet us on site that evening to go over what had happened, and got us access to the site clearly and legally, and to all of the pool equipment and everything that they had done and gone through it. So for what it's worth, they were highly cooperative. That doesn't take away any of the bad that happened, but we do have all that information.
Thank you, Jeff. Really makes me feel like all pools need to be pumped out of the pools and disposed of, like at the wastewater treatment plant. It just, this island is scary with the lack of ability to actually monitor these things, but I'm glad you guys caught this one.
No, yeah, I think we like I said, it came through multiple reports. So, but it was encouraging to see police, health, natural resources, and harbor master all respond and all be there and participate. So it was nice that we had a nice firm response from the town end.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Ian, I saw your hand go up, and then Linda, yours went up, so I'll go to you next.
Oh, you did, Madam Chair. So I'm curious, Jeff, any idea of how much water was discharged?
It was
Sounds
the
like it must-
entire, it was the entire pool. John hadn't estimated it to be around 25,000 gallons of water.
Wow, thank you.
Linda?
What's the address of this one again?
46 Monomoy.
That's insane. You might want to, just for jollies, I've done a bunch of pools in Nantucket. I hate pools, but I can't tell you can't have one if you can legally have one. The ZBA puts on a whole host of conditions related to just this issue on the ZBA permits for anybody getting a special permit in the VR zones in Nantucket. You might want to take a look at how they phrase that, because it requires them to have it done by a registered pool person, suck it out, whatever. There's a whole list of stuff that goes along with anybody getting a pool. Obviously not within the wetlands because they don't come to us, but there's a whole host of stuff that they put in as conditions when you get a pool that may work in our favor, because it says you can't drain it, you got to do this, you got to have it registered, you can't do it between certain months of the year. There's a whole bunch of stuff involved.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, I'll have to double check. John's been kind of coordinating the response, but I believe his report and information was sent over to them, but I'll follow up with him in the morning when he's here.
I can send you what's in it, because I have to do another decision now, but I can send you what those conditions are, but they're pretty stringent on when you can drain, how you can drain, who has to drain it, that kind of stuff.
Definitely. We'll take a look for sure.
Thank
But
you.
that's very helpful.
Any other questions, comments? Seth?
Yes, if you'll allow it, it's not specifically related to this enforcement, but Jeff, have the illicit discharge regulations been enacted yet, or is that still a work in progress?
They are still within the public hearing process at the select board. So they should be back up soon. I'll confirm the date that they'll be at the select board, and let you know.
Question, Seth. So Jeff, do you think we can do this under one motion to issue the enforcement and the monetary fine to both the property owner and contractor, or?
Yep, all at once.
So if there are no more questions or comments, would somebody like to make a motion to issue the enforcement order to both the homeowner and the contractor, and our monetary fine, which I believe is it $50 in this case?
Oh, geez.
Well, I was thinking I might try to go $50 for the coastal bank and $50 for the coastal beach, so I can feel better at least getting to triple digits, but.
How about $50 a gallon?
I would love to do that,
And we're
but I'm
criminal.
not sure that is possible.
Yeah.
I'll kick the
What
tires
about-
on it though, just for funsies.
What about land under the ocean, land containing shellfish, since those resource areas were probably impacted as well?
I think the problem with that is that it's probably and not definitely I don't unfortunately have photos that clearly demonstrate that impact. I will say though, it is on our inspection list for the next couple of weeks because we are really curious to see what happens to that vegetation, especially right on the property where they discharged it. And if that water was as chlorinated as we think it could have been, we'll probably see some pretty significant impacts to the veg there here pretty soon.
It is just so irresponsible. Linda, I see your hand up.
I know this pool. It was a hard fought at the HDC level also, given where the location was. Why are we, are we able to revamp our fees, our violation fees?
Somewhat through the regulatory updates, right, Jeff? We can do some of it.
Yeah, we just have to have a fixed penalty. We can't really have sliding discretionary scales. And then we can get away from the town charter restriction that limits us to $50.
I mean, that's just ridiculous. Do we have to put a warrant? That's my question, because the warrant is open. Do we have to, can we go back to town meeting to increase our fines?
No, the problem isn't the bylaw, the wetlands bylaw. The problem is the regulations that interpret that don't provide a specific penalty, and it defaults us into certain areas. But truth be told, the bigger problem with increasing the amount of fines, health has a lot more leeway because the state system allows it. But we issue all of our tickets as non-criminal tickets.
Right.
And there is a state cap of $300 for that.
That's
that
a
was
day.
set in like 1971, and it hasn't been revisited since then. And I think we all know that $300 in 1971 on Nantucket was a lot different than $300 in 2022. Really statewide, that's the case, but it's exacerbated here by quite a bit, especially for properties like this.
Well, the HCC is $300 a day max also, but it's a day that the violation exists. But I just think $50 is like, I'm just going to empty my thing and pay you the $50 and there you go. Too bad, so sad.
I'll have people coming with their credit cards, like in.
Yeah,
We've been ridiculous.
We've been brainstorming this one for a while, and I know we have come up with somewhat of a structure to make it better.
So I do have some ideas for, we can require them to mitigate the damage that was done. So
We got to prove it first though, right?
It's pretty obvious with the photos and stuff, the amount of scouring that went on. And the report that's there, not to mention the fact that unless they successfully challenge and overturn the health department ticket, proof is done. If they pay the ticket, then they're in effect admitting that. I don't think, there's no way to really avoid that it happened. So we'll have enough support, but I think mitigating that and looking at that site for how to mitigate it, and I think it's implicit in our mission to not only mitigate it, but also set those sites up to prevent those impacts in the future, may provide some really interesting ways to, in effect, to get to some sort of punitive action in kind of a roundabout way, and then provide some actual public benefit to the town access way and public access.
Well, you know, we did that, Madam Chair, through you. We did that at the HDC because we were also limited to $300 a day. And somebody took a building down on Thanksgiving up on Center Street behind the Jared Coffin House many years ago. We just happened to catch it driving by. The building was all of a sudden gone. It was an historic structure. And what are you going to do? Charge them $300 for that? So what we ended up doing is going after them for big bucks through the court, not through the clerk magistrate on the $300 a day thing. We went after them big time with the help of town council. And I think he ended up having to pay us 20 grand. So, I mean, there may be, as you said, Jeff, ways around going after these people for this kind of thing instead of writing that non-criminal $300 a day thing. I mean, this is just lunacy when people do this and they know they're not supposed to do this.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And Seth's hand has been up for a while and he's been so polite there. And then Joe, I see you up next.
Thank you. So the regulations are very specific about you can charge or you can assess fines daily only if it's a activity that has extended impact. So like if somebody just planted or I don't know, if somebody like just put up a shed that was within the area not allowed, that's just a one-time thing. But things like placing fill in an area where no fill is allowed, that's been multiple times been interpreted as that as long as that fill is there, every day that that fill is there, that's another violation. So can we maybe like test to see if the chlorine is still there? I don't know how chlorine probably disappears in the environment like relatively quickly, but can we take a sediment sample like every day and just see if it's there? And if it is, assess a new fine, or is that just gonna cost more and waste everyone's time?
Sadly, I think that may cost more upfront, but I think we're kind of also waiting to hear back from DEP because they exceeded a gallonage threshold for this. So they may be getting involved too. And if DEP gets involved, that opens up a whole different toolbox for us to use.
Great, thank you. I will just say it is possible to bring enforcements up to a criminal proceeding, but it's relatively rare. And I'm not sure that that's the easiest or best way to go on a site like this. It has to really be like egregious to go there.
I think for a site like this, if someone was going to pursue that, I actually feel like in this case, it's probably better pursued by the Board of Health. They have more teeth to things like this for the area in its entirety than we do. But like I said, we are kind of working in tandem with those guys to bring this to conclusion. But at some point, we still need a motion to issue the enforcement order.
I know, I remembered that and then forgot with all the conversation again, but Joe, you had your hand up. Oh, you're muted.
Curiosity, are pool companies licensed on the island?
Not really. They're a little wild westy, to be perfectly honest with you.
Because I was going to suggest if they were licensed, the pool company in this case should really have the heavy burden of the fine. Rather, a homeowner may not know what's going on, but a licensed pool company certainly would.
Well, I would also say, I kind of agree, and they're kind of the responsible party because I know they're getting hired to provide a professional service. One, I would suspect that they're probably not employed on this site anymore. I'd say that's a probably better than average chance. But I also know the way they're regulated and things that go on. And I'll get more information. Again, I apologize for not having it tonight. Their reporting mechanisms and things that they do as far as tests and stuff is all through health. So I'll get what their process is for you guys to know better. But we're just trying to tackle the immediate problem, and then we'll get to the larger problem.
Ian?
Yeah, so Jeff, could you bring up the subject of, if something like this happens, they lose their license? I mean, that would be a very powerful stimulant for them to be much more careful.
They need to get roasted in the paper like Clean Cut got roasted in the paper for the land bank treetops.
Right.
So that nobody wants to hire them.
Shame is always the best.
Yeah, shame, public shame, because I would agree with Ian about whether there's a way to sanction them. I mean, as we do with
drunken drivers, they lose their license.
Fertilizer and all that stuff. I mean, there's got to be a way to stop these guys or smack them upside their head somehow.
All right, Seth had his hand up, so I want to make sure to get to him.
I'll make the motion to issue the enforcement order and with the associated fines to the homeowner and to the pool service provider.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there, who seconded that?
I did.
All right, seconded by Linda. I couldn't hear. So roll vote. Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski. Oh, you're muted.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, that carries unanimously. Convinced we're gonna get them, guys. All right, so that moves us on to reports. We have crack.
So Craig, we've been crafting a letter that we've agreed on the first paragraph, and I'm going to read it out. And it's to the DEP Waterways Program. And it's Ray Chapter 91 compliance questions and requests for inspection. The Select Board of the Town of Nantucket and its Coastal Resiliency Advisory Committee are writing to join and support the request dated August 11th, 2022 from the Nantucket Conservation Commission for assistance from the Mass DEP Waterways Program to ensure that decisions made locally are consistent with policies and procedures of Mass DEP Waterways. And then there's a couple of versions, and the version that we've basically agreed on is going to be fine-tuned for our next meeting. I'm happy to forward it to Jeff for you to see if you'd like. And that's so I'll be brief. That's it.
Thank you, Ian. And yeah, I think it's always great for Jeff to circulate stuff like that around to us.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll forward it on then.
I know Mark left, so that was CPC, NP and EDC.
Yes, we met on Monday. There was a variety of items related to transportation and some discussion of updating the Nantucket area plan. There's also discussions about the operations of NP and EDC, what its function is, how it's staffed. There's some discussion of maybe changing or amending the enabling legislation to modernize the commission. So stay posted on that. And then the NP and EDC appointed myself to be the representative for NP and EDC to the Harbor Plan Update Committee. So someone else from Concom will have to do it for Concom.
Awesome. Thank you, Seth. And Jeff, I don't see that on our agenda tonight. Are we going to vote on that tonight?
Sorry, say that again?
The Harbor Advisory.
Oh,
Harbor Plan Update Committee.
Harbor Plan Update Committee, excuse me.
I think we should have all 7 members here, shouldn't we?
yeah, we'll put it on for next time so it's clearly posted. So.
Perfect. Linda, I think I see your hand up. You have a very blurry screen tonight.
I know, I don't know what happened to it. I was oddly from the planning board. I was on the harbor plan the harbor plan draft group, not the implementation group, but the draft group that actually wrote it. I don't mind being on it again. I mean, I was on it for a long time back in the day. So I do agree with Ian, and we should have everybody here.
Thank you, Linda. I agree as well that the more commissioners to kind of vote, the better for that one. So that'll be the November 10th meeting.
Yes.
Awesome. And that moves us on to commissioners' comments. Ian?
Sure. So welcome aboard, Will. Look forward to meeting in person. And are you going to send a bill to 75 Pocomo for brush cutting?
I don't think he still has
At your service.
Linda, I see your hand up.
My usual comment, excellent meeting, Madam Chairman. Best meetings in town that are run the best I've ever seen.
Thank you. I don't always feel that way from my perspective, but I do appreciate the comment.
I've been on a billion of these things and you do run the best meetings. I just got to say that over and over again.
Thank you. Any other commissioners' comments? All right, so that moves us on to administrator staff reports.
Let's go home.
Yeah.
I was hoping it would be under 3 hours. We did it, guys.
You did.
Not for nothing, the last meeting that Ian ran, we did it in under an hour. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah, Will didn't get to see that, or Ashley didn't get to see that either, but that was odd.
Oh, luck of the draw.
It was a very,
Well,
very,
because everyone was missing, everyone continued, so.
Well, consider how many things were continued tonight. Easily, we could have gone to 4 hours.
Yeah, I was worried about that, but I did
Yeah.
watch last meeting. I know I told Jeff that in the office on Monday, and Ian, you did a great job.
Well, coming from you, I take that as a real compliment. Thank you.
All right.
It took a number of hands behind the scene, didn't it, Jeff?
I'll move to adjourn.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second and third and fourth.
So by roll vote, Engelborg,
Aye.
Arisman, I, Golding,
Aye.
Landowski,
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
See you
you.
on
Have a
the
good
10th.
night.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good
Good
night.
night.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.